Hey everyone, welcome back to the Backchannel. In today's episode, we're going to talk about something slightly different. Usually I'm talking about the things that you all need to do to prepare for fundraisers, but there's a lot of stuff that we should be talking about when it comes to what happens after you raise capital. One of those topics is whether or not you should be announcing your fundraise. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, what's the question? Of course I should announce my fundraise, but I have personal experience around raising capital and trying to decide whether or not to raise capital. And then I've seen a bunch of fundraisers come and go and seen the positives and negatives of actually announcing your fundraise. So at a high level, what does it mean to raise capital and then announce your fundraise? Well, essentially you close your round and then you write up some sort of description of your fundraise, the lead investor, all the amazing things about your company. And then you put it out there to media outlets. You put a PR news wire release so that other people can write about it, and you get all this coverage to say, Jason Ye, this is announced a $10 million round led by Adamant Ventures. And it's this great, amazing article that brings a lot of fanfare. Now, there are some obvious positives to that, right? Press and attention can be good. You can use those things for things like raising capital. You can use that sort of attention to hire. You can use that attention to maybe sell additional clients. But there are some downsides to think about when it comes to announcing your round. And those are things that you should be intentional about when deciding whether or not to announce your fundraise. The biggest thing I see, especially in the earliest rounds of capital, is that founders think about fundraising as the goal, as the destination. And the announcement of the fundraise is this big ego boost to show the world that they did it. When in actuality, raising capital is just a step along the way. It's a means to an end. It's kind of a necessary evil. So if you can't actually get real value out of your announcement, you should really consider whether or not that makes sense, because there are downsides. Some downsides that I think about are, especially in the earliest stages of companies and even later on, announcing your fundraise can put you in a position where you've announced to the world that you're going to do something. And the pressure to stay on that path because you told the world that you're building Instagram for cats is a lot of pressure, and it can feel bad for a founder to pivot away from that or to make the necessary changes in their strategy as they learn more from the market. That announcement, that billboard that said we raised $10 million for Instagram for cats, I've seen a lot of founders, and I've had the same feeling when I raised capital, that I just stuck to that initial vision a little bit too long and should have made a shift when the pressure of that announcement actually caused me to hold on to it a little bit longer. So think about the unnecessary pressure to maintain the course that the announcement would give. If you're a crazy busy entrepreneur like me, I know one thing's certain: you have too much to do. Of course, you'd love to hire someone else to help, but I bet you think you can't afford it. It turns out you can, especially if you use a recruiting firm called Agent, like I have in recruiting my last 4 team members. Agent specializes in recruiting overseas talent. Now, I know what you're thinking: not another virtual assistant hiring agency. Yes, they can help you hire assistants, but they can also help you hire skilled talent like marketers, designers, and even engineers at a fraction of the cost. Now, if you're looking to add more leverage to your team, check out fundedpod.com/agent. That's AGENT to add your next team member. You can thank me later. Also, it's not all that great to shine a light on what you're doing, especially if it's innovative right now, and invite more competitors to compete with you before you've actually started building momentum, had an advantage created. Of course, competitors are going to come, but what's the point of bringing competitors in before you need to? So when I think about what it means to actually announce a fundraise, is you should be thinking about that as a tool. And if the tool makes sense for where you are and the company you're building today, then do it. A lot of people say, well, it'll drive traffic to my site. It'll drive more eyeballs. Well, a lot of people, when they've raised their first round of capital, haven't built a great mousetrap. Let's assume that they understand the right path that they're going down, and the first problem that I described of being stuck in a strategic direction or wrong strategic direction isn't the problem. Maybe you have the right strategic direction, but you haven't built a great mousetrap. As in, even if we were to dump a bunch of traffic onto your website, onto your app, etc., you're not really good at converting that traffic. So what's the point of doing that if you're considering it to be a marketing push or advertising when you can't actually take that traffic and turn it into anything good? Now, I won't say that's all negatives, right? I already mentioned having some bit of press can add credibility to the company, which can help you with recruiting, with convincing new hires to actually join the company. It can also give you some credibility as you're trying to sell customers to show, look, we are this thing, we're a known quantity, we won't lose your money, we won't shut down if you decide to put your money with us. But those advantages really need to be balanced out with the disadvantages. So my advice to you is to really take a hard look at whether or not the distraction, the effort, and the outcomes of announcing your fundraise are really worth it. There will be situations where it's valuable, but it's not always the case. At the very least, sit on it. You don't need to announce your fundraise right after the round is closed. You can always decide to announce it later. I've seen many companies say now is not the right time to announce the fundraise, and over a year later decide, ooh, now I can use that traffic. Now I've modified my company, pivoted the direction slightly, created a better mousetrap. Now that blast and that added credibility, that added traffic will be well used, and then announce the fundraise. All right. So hopefully that's a good lesson for you all post fundraise, which I'm hoping all of you get to. It's just one thing to think about as you go down the path of being a venture-backed company. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Back Channel, and I'll see you next time.